Hello friends, welcome to my new video. This time I will talk about Witch Hat Atelier, or to be precise about every magic spell in Witch Hat Atelier. So that means the entire manga. I will also try to talk about how the spells work, at least as much as the current knowledge possibly allows, because the effects and interactions of many signs and seals are still very uncertain. But in August this year there will be a Witch Hat Atelier archive book release that will provide some new information about the world and spells. So I'm looking forward to that. I will split the video into two parts. The first part will be about the spells that also occur in the anime and the manga. And the second half of the video is about the rest of the spells that are only in the manga, so we can avoid spoilers more easily. The images of the spell seals and the description of some spells came from the Witch Hat Atelier wiki site. So if you want to learn more about Witch Hat Atelier, I would recommend to check out the wiki. Now, I will first give you a short overview about the whole magic system in Witch Hat Atelier and how the principles work. In the series, magic is performed by drawing spells or seals. Spells are normally composed of one or more sigils and signs, which control the spell's behavior. There is also a surrounding ring, which once fully connected serves to activate the spell. These symbols must be drawn using wood cruor, which is the main ingredient for conjuring ink and the only known substance which can activate magic when it is drawn with. It is also used in making wands. Composition and accuracy are also important factors in the outcome of the spell, with smaller or messier seals being weaker or shorter than larger or neater ones. The same principles apply to the signs as well. Some spells may even fail to activate if the ring is not circular enough. Many small seals can be linked together to replicate strength of larger ones, which can be useful in situations when drawing a giant seal accurately would be impractical or even impossible, or to conceal the spell for use in a contraption. They usually fall into 5 main groups: fire, water, earth, wind and light, depending on which sigil it possesses. But there are also a lot of other sigils. When you see a small U in parentheses beside the spell name, it means that this is not the official spell name. The other names should be correct ones, but it's always a bit difficult with translations. Fire spells. Fireball seal. The Fireball Seal is a fire-type spell used to create a levitating ball of flame. It contains a central fire sigil with levitation signs arranged around it. This spell produces a ball of fire that will levitate both itself and any object that isn't too heavy directly above the seal. This spell was used by Coco under the instruction of Kifri to cook carapace jams for a picnic. Snugstone spell. The Snugstone spell is a fire-type spell invented by Orugio which radiates warmth. The spell consists of a fire sigil, backwards column signs and radial signs. It radiates warmth outward without the need for a flame and is used on the Snugstone, an item used to keep you warm while you sleep. The spell is pretty balanced to the size of the seal so that it is warm to the touch, but not hot enough to burn. The spell was first seen drawn on the Snugstones that Orugio gave to Kivri and his apprentices so they could sleep better. Spiraling Flame. Spiraling Flame is a fire-type spell used by Argot that produces a single spiraling column of flame. Spiraling Flame contains a fire sigil paired with column and a sign of spiraling winds, which produces a column of spinning flame. A side set sign allows the spell's effect to be aimed in a direction determined mentally by the caster. The spell is used by Argot to shoot at the dragon chasing them in the illusory labyrinth. It was able to stall the dragon long enough for them to escape. Water spells. Rainbringer Seal. Rainbringer Seal is a water-type spell which generates rain. The Rainbringer Seal consists of a central water sigil with a rain sign surrounding it. When drawn, it creates a shower of rain. This spell was never actually seen being used by anyone directly, but Oini used a spell that caused it to rain while in the cave during the second test, but it is not entirely confirmed whether that was this spell. Watershot Seal. Watershot Seal is a water-type spell that creates a stream of water. Watershot Seal is a spell that also consists of a central water sigil surrounded by column signs. Assuming all the signs are of equivalent length, it will shoot water straight up from the seal. It was the first spell which Coco learned while at Kifri's atelier. When Coco completed the seal, it misfired and hit Argot in the face. It was because Coco had drawn one of the column signs longer than the others, causing the spell to be unbalanced and shoot in the direction of that longer column sign. Kifri's Water Dragon. The Water Dragon spell uses water from nearby clouds and also likely bodies of water to produce a giant water dragon. which will subsequently turn into a water lily before the spell stops working. The center of the seal contains a dragon sigil. This allows the spell to form a giant dragon. The modified flower seal around it, which has its arc-shaped portions swapped for water droplets, likely is what's responsible for allowing the water gathered by the spell to take the shape of a water lily once the dragon dissipates. The water is gathered thanks to the convergence signs, which in the case of the spell being used near clouds will converge the water in them to a point thanks to the water sigils, allowing it to be incorporated into the spell. So the enlarged signs would make the dragon bigger and column signs dictate its direction. The spell is used by Kifri to subdue the dragon that was attacking Coco and the others in the illusory labyrinth. I mean, it's a dragon, do I have to say anything else about it? Look at it. Water Rose. Kifri shows Coco the Water Rose spell while lecturing her about how to master spells effectively. The Water Rose is a spell that consists of a central water sigil encased in the flower sigil. Each part has a sigil that looks kinda like crystallize. Rain Cleaver spell. The Rain Cleaver is a sword used by Kifri to save people from the river. The Rain Cleaver is able to cut through and part water. Because swords are long and not circular, it would be difficult to draw a seal large enough to have a reasonable effect. To solve this, many smaller seals are connected together with lines to create the effect of a larger seal. The Rain Cleaver has the seals etched into the metal. Those edges are probably filled with conjuring ink. The seals on the Rain Cleaver are made up of main seals with water sigils. These main seals are connected to other circles that are either empty or contain single signs, including but not limited to column, convergence and strengthening. There are also two sword sigils for the form, gather signs, envelope signs and binding signs above and below the water sigils. Earth spells. Boulder Stretch Rope is a earth type spell that shapes stone into a flexible ribbon. Boulder Stretch contains a central earth sigil with a single weave keystone wrapped around it. This spell turns into a flexible ribbon that can be used for many purposes. The spell was created and used by Riche to cross a gap in the road of the Serpent Back Cave. Serpent's Bed of Sand. The Serpent's Bed of Sand is a mixed earth type spell created by the 4 apprentices of the Atelier that creates a fluffy cloud made of sand. The Serpent's Bed of Sand is an amalgamation of several spells. At its center is a billow cluster spell which contains a central billowing sign surrounded by collection signs that gather up surrounding material and turns it into a cloud. Arranged around that are several wall breaker seals, the seals containing an earth sigil paired with crush and column signs, which are for crushing the ground into fine soft sand, which then gets pulled into a billow cluster spell. This is all wrapped up in a repetition seal which contains repetition sigils, conversion signs and column signs, so that no matter what happens to the spell's cloud, it will always return to the original consistency. This all culminates into a fluffy cloud made out of sand that is strong enough to hold up even a dragon and regain its shape once the weight is removed. The original idea came from Tetya and the spell was created by all of the 4 apprentices. Once perfected, it was then used to make the dragon guarding the illusory labyrinth seal so comfortable it fell asleep, allowing the girls to climb the center tower without being chased. Wallband. The Wallband spell is an earth type spell that allows the manipulation of earthen materials such as stone, soil or brick. Wallband contains an earth sigil in the lower half of the seal and 2 downwards facing pull signs next to it. This allows for the spell to target the nearby earth material and pull them into a certain direction in relation to the casting spell. The signs above and below the sigil are currently unknown. It is possible that they contribute to the spell's ability to duplicate or spread its targeted material. Wallband is seen being used for defensive purposes on multiple occasions, drawing out the ground beneath the user and hardening it into a rough stone barrier that they can duck behind to evade attacks. Kifri defends against Sazarin's spike using the spell. Wallbreaker Seal. The Wallbreaker Seal is an earth type spell used for destroying solid material. The Wallbreaker contains a central earth sigil, 2 column signs to the sides of the earth sigil and crushing signs at 90-degree angles from the column signs. This spell breaks through objects it is drawn on, reducing the material to dust. Wallbreaker was first used by Riche while she and the other apprentices of Kifri's Atelier broke through a wall to escape a dragon in the artificial city created by the illusory labyrinth spell. Wind spells. Flying Puppet of Diversion. Flying Puppet of Diversion is a wind type spell that will cause nearby objects to dart through the sky. Flying Puppet of Diversion contains a central wind sigil surrounded by the ring-like dancing puppet sign. When the seal is completed, it will cause any objects near it to dart into the sky and move around erratically, with enough strength to even carry some objects up into the sky with it. The flying puppet of diversion was used by Tetya to distract the dragon that was chasing her and the other apprentices while they were inside the underground labyrinth. Tetya used the spell on her cloak and the hat so it would appear large enough to be noticeable to the dragon. Grasping Wind. Grasping Wind is a wind type spell that causes a strong wind current towards the seal. Grasping Wind contains a wind sigil surrounded by inward facing pulling signs. When completed, the spell will cause a wind current to go towards it, having enough force to pull some lighter objects towards it. Additionally, if the pulling signs are a bit slanted, the air will twist, creating a vortex that can twist objects as they are pulled towards the spell. The spell was first seen being used by Coco when she attempted to use the spell to pluck a mountain apple from a small tree, but she accidentally drew the seal too large and uprooted the entire tree. Pegasus Carriage Spell. The Pegasus Carriage spell is a spell of unknown type that allows the Pegasus Carriage to fly and remain stable. The spell contains 2 exterior rings and 4 interior smaller subspells. The outer ring is made up of signs of wind. At the center of the inner ring is a sign of stability and level planes, which helps to keep the carriage upright. It is surrounded by 4 inward facing column signs. Further out between the subspells are arrangements of wind signs and column signs, with the column signs all point clockwise, presumably adding a rotational aspect to the spell. The outermost section of the inner ring is packed with a large number of column signs. 2 of the subspells contain wind underfoot sigils paired with levitation signs and signs of aeriforms defined. The other 2 subspells contain whirling wind sigils and column signs. It is difficult to ascertain how the spell functions as it contains many things which aren't seen anywhere else. The spell was first seen when a pair of noble girls visited Coco's village to browse the wares for sale at the shop of Coco's mother. After it was broken by 2 village boys, Kifri repaired the seal. Sky Soaring Seal. Sky Soaring Seal is a wind type spell that can allow things to fly when drawn large enough. Sky Soaring Seal contains a wind sigil located at the bottom of the seal with a levitation sign spanning from just above the sigil to the opposite side of the seal. The spell produces thrust in the direction of its sign, and when drawn on something large such as a sail, can even allow that object to fly. It was used by Coco, who was undergoing the Consent of the Crown test. The herb that allows her to pass the test and become an apprentice witch only grew on the floating spheres of the Dada range. After finding a boat and reflecting on her situation, Coco came up with the idea of the Sky Soaring Seal, keeping in mind the lessons she learned regarding the watershot seal from Argot the day prior. She used her invention to fly up to one of the diadem herbs and grabbed it. Sylph Shoe Seal. The Sylph Shoe Seal is a wind type spell that allows the user using it on his shoes to fly. The Sylph Shoe Seal contains a central wind underfoot sigil, which is a variant of the wind sigil, surrounded by an alternating pattern of convergence and levitation signs. So far it has only been seen on Sylph shoes, contraptions which allow the user to float above the ground and fly whenever the 2 shoes are touched together. The seal is bisected, 1/2 on each sole, and when the shoes touch together, the seal completes and activates, allowing the user to fly. They have been seen used by many pointed cap witches, including Kifri, Argot, Coco, and the Knight of Morales. River Fairy Seal. The River Fairy Seal is a wind type spell that propels a water vehicle using air. It is used on the Kalend River Ferry. The seal has a central wind sigil and is surrounded by 6 levitation signs, 6 unknown signs in the shape of an equal sign, and 6 column and region signs, which look a bit similar to levitations when put together. It is possible that the column and region signs are meant to be levitation, but the way it has been depicted is a bit inconsistent in regards to if the lines are connected or not. The spell is placed at the rear end of the boat facing forward. It creates a steady gust of wind pushing the sail in the front. The River Ferry spell is used to transport people and goods from the mainland to the island in Kaln, since there are no bridges. The ferry is mainly for witches without the ability to fly over, like Tartar. Light spells. Bird of Light Beacon. Bird of Light Beacon contains a central light sigil with a dispersion keystone on one side and a bird keystone on the other 3. The spell produces a bird made from light that will fly around for some time and can be used to call for help, distracting, or to just entertain. During the rescue at the river, Argot used this spell to distract the outsiders in the area so Coco could perform magic to save Kustas without being seen, as well as to call help. Float Glow Lamp. Well anchored Float Glow Lamp. The wall-anchored float glow lamp seal version consists of a central light sigil surrounded by alternating convergence and levitation signs. Levitation makes the light float above the spell as well as levitates the top portion of the float glow lamp above the seal. But it has yet to be determined what convergence does in this spell. The wall-anchored float glow lamp is intended to be mounted to a surface. Light beam. Light beam is a light type spell that creates a beam of light. It contains a central light sigil surrounded by column signs. The spell generates a beam of light pointing up from the seal. The more precisely the seal is drawn, the more steady the beam will be. The light beam was seen being used by Argot during her magic drawing practice. Glowstone Path Seal. Glowstone Path Seal is a light type spell that causes a stone to emit light when stepped on. The Glowstone Path spell contains a light sigil in the middle with dispersion signs on the left and right. The spell additionally contains an elongated X shape with unknown signs near the intersection points. Above the light sigil there is a lone levitation sigil flanked by unknown sigils, which is presumably the reason the stones can be pressed down in the first place. As a child, Coco was fascinated with this spell at a castle festival. The spell appears to be broadly used in society, or at least for some special events like festivals. Carousel of Lights. This is a light type spell where the effect is only shown briefly in the opening of the anime. They appear to be just spinning light particles. It has a light sigil surrounded by a circle of alternating signs between levitation, crosshair and Aeriform's defined signs. Crystallize spells. Crystal Ribbon. The spell is a niche type spell that creates, as the name might suggest, a crystal ribbon. The seal for Crystal Ribbon is never actually shown in the manga, but its effects are nearly identical to that of the Boulder Stretch Rope, which is another spell made by Riche. It creates a soft flexible ribbon of crystals and is one of the favorite spells of Riche. While this is not the canon spell design, as the actual seal is not shown, the crystal is used in the image because it's the nearest to the spell's effect. The spell was initially presented as a decorative spell because Riche used it to decorate her hideout. She also used it to get the Murphans follow her through the Serpent Back Cave. Crystal Shard. Crystal Shard is a crystallized spell that creates several crystal shards. The spell contains a central crystallized sigil surrounded by inverted column signs. It causes several large shard-like crystals to suddenly erupt from the seal. Riche once used the spell during the height of an emotional outburst, which occurred as a result of Kifri suggesting she study magic other than her own. Icy Road. A spell used by Argot to quickly travel to the other side of the bridge to escape the Brimhead Sazaran during the second Pentagram test arc. It consists of a crystallized sigil surrounded by a circle of alternating column and another not entirely clear sign. Time spells. Capture Pennant Spell. Capture Pennant Spell is a time spell used in the Silver-White Capture Pennant, which allows a knight to control their Capture Pennant and wrap it around objects. It reinforces and strengthens the Capture Pennant as well. The spell contains 2 rings. At the center of the inner ring is a repetition sign. This likely functions to help the Capture Pennant resist damage and bending, similar to its function in the Serpent's Bed of Sand. Straddling the inner and outer ring are a number of side set and entwined signs, with some of the entwined signs having strengthening signs on their ends. The side set signs allow the user of a Capture Pennant to use their mind to control the spell and choose a target, with the entwined signs allowing the pennant to wrap around said target. These pennants are used by the Morales Knights to hold people, typically criminals, injured persons or objects in place by securely wrapping around the person or object. Now the Repetition Seal. The Repetition Seal family are a collection of niche or time type spells that reverts objects to their original form. There exist different type of repetition seals and each one is different, but they all feature a repetition sigil as their main basis. At their core, repetition spells function by causing the objects they are used on to become like new. For example, if you were to use the spell on rotten food, it would become fresh, such as in the magic cookpot. Dirty clothes would become brand new, which is the principle behind the washing barrels. The repetition seal was used in different examples, such as during the time Kifri's apprentices were stuck in the illusory labyrinth, where they used the spell as a component for the Serpent's Bed of Sand. The spell functioned to hold together the cloud that the dragon would sit on by forcing it to return to its original form, preventing it from being crushed. Vision spells. Borrow Shade Cloak. The Borrow Shade Cloak spell is a vision spell that makes the object it is drawn on get enveloped by shadows. The spell consists of a central concealment sign and 4 envelope signs that are located just off of the remaining points of the concealment sign. The spell causes the object the spell is drawn on to get wrapped by shadows. allowing the user to conceal themselves within the shadows by covering themselves with the object. Borrowshade Cloak was first seen as a component of the Mirror Cloak spell when Oini was inspecting the inside of the cloak during the Sincerity of the Shield test. The spell was then seen in its entirety when Oini was explaining the spell to Argot, Ricci and Elyra. Not long after, the spell was seen as a component of the cloak spell used in Zazaran's Magic Cloak. Mirror Cloak spell. Mirror cloaks are composed of signs of concealment, reflection and gathering shadows. The signs of reflection combine to make the wearer vanish into shadow, then let the cloak's scales reflect back an image of whatever beast is nearby. Mirror cloaks are customarily used as part of the Sincerity of the Shield test, as it would be near impossible to lead the Merchants otherwise. Besides that, it is unknown if they are widely used for other purposes. Mirror spell. The mirror spell is a vision spell that causes something looking at it to be reflected. The spell contains a main circle with 4 satellite circles. Each satellite circle contains a single reflect sign, and an additional set of 4 reflect signs are placed in the main circle. Also within this circle are several signs composed of partial circles and lines, with each one linking to 2 satellite circles. Lastly, 4 project signs are nestled between the aforementioned circular signs. When linked with gathering shadows, the spell lets the user borrow the appearance of any animal that gazes upon them, this combined spell being used in the Mirror Cloak of Borrowshade. It isn't known, however, the effect that this spell has on its own. All the apprentices taking the Sincerity of the Shield are given a Mirror Cloak of Borrowshade, which contains the mirror spell for the test. During Oini's test, he crossed out the mirror spell within his cloak, leaving only the gathering shadows. This made the cloak conceal him, allowing him to draw without being seen, boosting his confidence as he has difficulty drawing in front of others. Mixed spells. Floating drops. The floating drop spell is a mixed water-wind type spell that creates floating drops of water which form along the ring of the spell. It consists of a central air sigil with 2 water sigils to the side. On the outside edge of the spell are directional keystones situated in pairs, each pair consisting of 1 normal and 1 inverted sign, pointing towards one another. The spell creates water droplets that float in the air. Due to the counteracting pairs of directional keystones, the drops are only generated along the seal's outer ring. The spell was used by Kifri to help ease a fever Coco was suffering from due to overwork. Rainflinger. Rainflinger is a mixed wind type and fire type spell that evaporates moisture. It has a wind sigil with 2 smaller fire sigils on either side. It also includes 2 crosshair signs located above and below the wind sigil. The crosshair signs likely target the air with heat, resulting in the warm winds that dry objects within its radius. The effect of Rainflinger has been shown to differ visually, but has consistently been described as a spell that dries and keeps things dry. It is first seen on Ulrugio's link rings, which he uses to dry off brush buddies and Coco after getting caught in the rain. The fire sigils used in Rainflinger are modified. Instead of the typical triangle with 3 lines on each side, Rainflinger variants only have 2 lines, with the innermost line being absent. Waterflinger. Waterflinger is a mixed water type and fire type spell. Waterflinger contains a central water sigil with 2 smaller fire sigils located above and below it. It also includes 2 crosshair signs on either side of the water sigil. The spell's effect had not been shown in the manga. It's possible that the crosshair signs target water with heat to evaporate it. The Waterflinger spell has made multiple appearances in form of its seal, but not in regards to its effect. Vapor Bubble spell. This spell is inscribed upon the inner surface of 2 shallow saucers. Its purpose is to draw moisture from the surrounding air and condense it into a single, shimmering globule of fresh water. The design consists of 2 rings, each bearing distinct sigils and signs. At the center of the inner ring lies the sigil of water, flanked above and below by signs of gathering, symbolizing the pull of vapor into form. In the outer ring to the left and right are sigils of wind channeling the currents of air. Beside each wind sigil rests also a sign of column stabilizing the flow, followed by signs of cooling which complete the condensation process. Frozen Path. Frozen Path is a mixed spell with a water sigil and a crystallized sigil. It has 2 column signs left and right from the 2 lines that resemble a road, and at the top is the strengthening sign. Kind of does the same as the Icy Road spell, so it's not exactly clear what the difference is. It was shown in the anime when Argot, Ricci and Oini tried to escape the brimmed cap Zazaran in the Serpent Back Cave. Niche spells. Billow Cluster. Billow Cluster is a niche spell that creates a cloud out of any material that is directed into it. It contains a central billowing sigil surrounded by collection signs. It collects material directed into it and converts said material into a cloud. The Billow Cluster Seal was used in the Serpent's Bed of Sand seal, where it served to convert the sand generated by the other parts of the spell into a cloud, upon which the dragon hunting the girl slept, allowing them the time to destroy the illusory labyrinth seal so they can escape. Memory Erasure. Memory Erasure is a type of spell mostly used by the Knights Moralis to wipe the knowledge of forbidden magic from their targets. Unlike most spells, the Memory Erasure seals are white on a black background instead of drawn with ink on a regular surface. There are several variants of the spell, though all are incredibly similar with only some minor changes such as additional signs. The sigil at the center is made of concentric circles with a dot in the middle. Several glyphs also protrude from the bottom of the spell, and the circle also contains dot-shaped signs along the outer edge and top. Regarding the spell variants, the observed and suggested effects are the total erasure of magic from the mind and any memories that are connected to it, erasure from a specific period of time, and the erasure of specific topics or people regardless of time. The Memory Erasure spell are the only type of magic allowed to be used on the body. They are not qualified as forbidden magic because they are used to help protecting the secret of magic. Sand Bridge. Sand Bridge is a spell used to construct a bridge out of sand, one pillar at a time. The spell is composed of some unrecognizable signs, the only ones known being column, strengthen, and inverted radial. Additionally, there are signs that resemble regions or modification of regions. At the top and bottom are also two signs of solidifications next to the column sign. The spell functions by creating a temporary bridge out of sand, the spell producing just a single column of said bridge, requiring the use of multiple spells to build a complete bridge. The spell was used by Eulrugio after the Staircase River disaster had subsided. As the original bridge had collapsed, crossing the river became impossible, so to solve this, he created a sand bridge as a temporary fix. Because a normal wand would be impractical to use, he used a sear needle wand to etch the glyphs into a stone. Windowway spell. The Windowway spell is a kind of space-type spell used in the Windowway that opens a gateway between two locations. The base Windowway spell contains an outer ring of lightning bolt-shaped signs, and an inner ring of signs which appear similar to directional, pointing in the opposite direction. Oftentimes windowways will contain a symbol which seems to correspond then to the location the windowway links up with, but it is unknown whether this symbol is simply an indicator or actually a part of the spell. The spell can only be used when there is a pair of windowways. The spell was first seen when Kifri was showing a windowway to Coco at the beginning, and later that day for Kifri to visit the Great Hall and Coco to visit the Dada Range for the Consent of the Crown test. Enchanted Doorknob Seal. The Starry Sword is a magic stationer shop located in the town of Kaln run by Mr. Nolnur and his grandson Tartar. The door to the shop is magical and blends into the wall when closed. To open it you need a special doorknob to enter. There are multiple different doorknobs that lead to different rooms as explained by Tartar, each with different signs and sigils. Handheld Windowway. The handheld windowway is used by Kifri to talk to someone shortly after Coco arrived for the first time. It was also seen in later parts of the story by Coco. It is composed of many split in half arrows that face inwards, and also a circle. Forbidden spells. Illusory Labyrinth. Illusory Labyrinth is a forbidden spell that creates a labyrinth in the area that loops infinitely, making it impossible to escape. The spell contains the same central sigils as the Scalewolf's curse. With column and directional signs, the remaining signs and sigils are sadly unidentified. The spell creates a big underground labyrinth with distorted space. As if you walk too far, you will show up right where you started. Egwene trapped all of Kifri's apprentices inside, and the spell was there guarded by a dragon, but they managed to destroy the spell and were extracted by Kifri, following the collapse of the entire labyrinth. Petrification. Petrification is a forbidden spell that turns everything nearby, alive or inanimate, into a rock-like unknown material. The seal consists of a large number of both unknown and known elements, column, envelope, dispersion and region signs, as well as an earth sigil and a time stop spell. The rest of the design remains a mystery, while the inclusion of earth signs indicate that the spell is indeed somehow turning things to stone, but how exactly is unclear. The time stop spell suggests that time is frozen for whatever the spell petrifies. It was the last spell Coco drew from this picture book she received, and just as she finished drawing it, Kifri snatched her up and whisked her out of her house just before it and her mother were turned to stone. The Scale Wolf Curse. This spell is a forbidden spell that permanently causes someone's body to be transformed. In the case of Oini, it was a Scale Wolf. The spell contains a sigil identical to one in the illusory labyrinth spell, this sigil being made up of 3 dots arranged in a triangle shape, but other than that all of the sigils and signs are sadly unknown again. When it was used on Oini, he transformed into a Scale Wolf as said before. This happened as a result of the mirror cloak of Borrowshade he was wearing, fusing with him as the cloak contained the fur and scales of a Scale Wolf. The spell's first and only known use was by Sazaran, a brimmed cap witch during the events at Serpentback Cave. Twinned Bottle Spell. The Twinned Bottle spell seal is a forbidden space-type spell able to teleport fluids from one place to another. The spell is largely undeciphered. At the core of the spell are 2 convergence signs and 2 region signs that point towards the center of the spell. All other signs are unfamiliar. Before the Day of the Pact, twinned bottles were commonly used by those who practice healing craft to share their potions. The spell was used by Ygwin, who placed it on 2 tiny pieces of glass which were placed in ink bottles, one of which he possessed and the other secretly given to Coco. He used the spell to give Coco a forbidden, more powerful ink from a remote location without her knowledge, which contained his own blood. Ancient Labyrinth Spell. The Labyrinth seal was shown right before the Sincerity of the Shield test in the anime. It is part of the Serpentback Cave, which is an old magical ruin from a more tumultuous age. It makes it dangerous to stray from the main path because the orientation is completely distorted. It contains many unknown signs. Ancient Spells. Ancient Light Beacon. The Ancient Light Beacon is a light type spell that presumably creates a column of light. As the name entails, it's ancient and most likely used before the Day of the Pact. Alongside the signs of convergence are signs that look similar to the stillness or glaives. The inner ring is composed of what appear to be varieties of light sigils connected by more unknown signs. It was most likely used as a light beacon before the Day of the Pact. However, nowadays there is a simplified version referring to the commonly used light sigil. Unknown Spells. This includes all the spells where not so much is known about them right now. I will only include spells here where at least the effect was shown to some degree in the anime or manga. Forbidden Flames. Forbidden Flames is a spell of unknown type which creates a small fire. This spell is composed of column signs, an unknown sign and an unknown sigil. It burns like a normal fire spell and it is unknown if it has any forbidden properties or not. This spell was only used one time by Coco at the beginning, where she copied it from the picture book sold to her by Ygwin. The Forbidden Glow is a spell of unknown type which creates glowing sparkles of light. This spell is composed of a ring of column signs with an unknown central sigil. Its effect appears to be similar to that of a light-based spell, but whether or not the spell is forbidden is also unknown. This spell was the first one Coco ever drew at the beginning. From here on I will give a short spoiler warning, because I will now talk about the spells that are only in the manga, as of right now at least. Fire Spells. Flame Burst Spell. The Flame Burst spell is a fire-type spell used by Olrugio that produces a ring of fire and subsequently a larger explosion. Flame Burst in Olrugio's usage made use of 2 separate paper components, one being a palm quire in his one hand and the other being a roll of paper that creates a circle when unfolded. On the roll, the spell alternates pull and column signs. The pull signs function here as probably to pull air from the surrounding air as fuel for the fire. The column signs' purpose is also possibly to make the larger fire explosion manifest as a sort of beam attack. The palm quire is not entirely clear in its composition, but it has a fire sigil in the middle of it. Olrugio used this spell against the Valance Leech while fighting mid-air. Flame Shot Seal. The Flame Shot Seal is a fire-type spell used by Coco that produces a directional flame resembling a type of fireball with a longer tail. Flameshot contains a fire sigil at the bottom of the seal with a column sign extending up from it, reaching all the way to the other side of the spell. This makes a column of flame shooting forward from the spell in the direction of the point of the column spell. From there, groups of 5 region signs on the left and right sides of the spell impart additional direction to the spell and confine the area of the magic to the space in front of it. Coco used the spell while being carried by Kifri to shoot at the Valan's Leech. Phantasmal Fireball. The Phantasmal Fireball spell is a surprise fire type spell invented by Olrugio that forms an artificial flame which doesn't produce heat but looks and acts like a real flame. The spell consists of a fire sigil variant and several never before seen signs. Olrugio created this contraption to have the benefits of a real fire, so to light the way and scare off beasts, but without any of the risks like getting burned or the fire spreading. And without needing fuel, the phantasmal fire will never go out. But because it looks too real but is otherwise harmless, he worried the children growing up with this fake fire might think that all fire was equally harmless and mistakenly put themselves in danger. This was later fixed by putting the phantasmal fireball in a crystal. Snow Fending. The Snow Fending seal was a fire type spell used by Kifri that kept the snow off of Coco's petrified house and mother during the winter. The central sigil is a fire sigil. It contains float signs, the stillness sign, left and right, and other unknown signs, one of which appears similar to a wind sigil. The stillness sign is likely used to hold heat over or on Coco's house in the Snow Fending spell. Ring of Fire. Ring of Fire is a fire type spell that produces fire in the shape of a ring. It contains a fire sigil surrounded by 3 dispersion signs. It's unclear if the signs being off-center is intentional. Olrugio uses the spell during the Valan's Leech arc after Coco and Argot fly into the fray without warning. He later merges the spell with Kifri's Water Dragon, drastically increasing the water's temperature and resulting in the creation of the Boil Fire Dragon. Water spells. Purify. Purify is a water type spell that purifies water. It consists of a central water sigil enclosed by 2 collection signs on either side and surrounded by purify signs above and below. It purifies wastewater. Coco demonstrates this spell at the Silver Eve festival during the Silver Eve procession drawn on the portable waste purification pot. Rising Platform of Water. Rising Platform of Water is a water type spell that creates an upwards surge of water. It consists of a central water sigil with horizontally facing levitation signs and outward facing column signs surrounding it. When drawn on an object, the spell will generate a column of water that will lift said object straight up into the air. Rising Platform of Water was shown to be the spell utilized by Ricci's old master and his apprentices in order to traverse the floating mountains of Dada range. Rising Wave. Rising Wave is a water type spell that creates a surge of water. It has a water sigil in the middle surrounded by a ring of column signs. On half of the spell, region signs are located between the column signs. It creates a surge of water that travels up diagonally, allowing the caster to propel themselves up into the air. It was used by Kifri during the battle with Sazaran in the Serpent Back Cave. Water Bolt. Water Bolt is a water type spell that creates water arrows. It has a water sigil near the bottom with 1 horizontal row of bolt signs going through the middle of the spell, perpendicular to the water sigil, and another row of region signs running parallel to the row of bolt signs. The spell shoots bolts of water straight ahead and is more effective when drawn big. It was used by Kifri during the battle with the Ancients of Romonon. He drew the seal using the Water Pen spell. Water Pen. The Water Pen is a water type spell that makes a dagger or pen nib shaped glob of water. The spell consists of a central water sigil with an unknown triangle-like decorative sign below, unknown signs shaped like parts of a circle parameter on each side, and a dispersion sign with 2 column signs protruding from the sides at the top of the seal. Conjuring ink can be poured into the dagger, which will saturate the water with ink. This allows the user to use the pen to draw large seals on practically any surface. Water Horse spell. The Water Horse spell is a water type spell that creates a horse made from water. It has a water sigil in the middle with a horse-like decorative sign located above it. An unknown sign is located to the left and right of the sigil, and an alternating collection of region and line-shaped signs are situated below the sigil. The spell creates a horse which can be used to pull a vehicle, such as in the case of the Water Horse carriage. Water Orb. The Water Orb is a water type spell that creates an invisible spherical container for water. It consists of a central water sigil. The sigil is enclosed by 2 column signs on either side, and the central sigil is enclosed by 4 orb signs, 1 in each corner. Kifri used the spell when talking to Argot at Silver Eve to show her a globe. Everlasting Ice Pack. Everlasting Ice Pack is a water type spell that creates an ice pack made from running water. But surprising to its name, it's actually not an ice spell. Instead, it relies on a water sigil and a single column sign pointing towards it. In the same panel, it is partially seen that Coco's attempt at creating it used many signs of columns pointing at each other in a circular formation. Coco's intention was to give it to Kifri when he was still in the healing spire at the Great Hall. Water Cage. The Water Cage is a water type spell which creates a spherical cage. The spell is composed up of 2 connected spells. The lesser of the 2 spells contains only a pull sign pointing towards the larger spell. The larger spell is comprised of region signs pointing towards crush signs, 2 region signs close together, and an unknown third sign. It is likely that the function of the smaller pull spell is in order to force Engendal within the actual water cage easier. As I mentioned his name already, Kifri used the spell against Engendal while protecting Coco. Because it was a water spell, all of Engendal's spells were set off at once while the ink was washed away. Earth spells. Integration. Integration is an earth type spell that puts powder back together into its source original form. It contains a central earth sigil surrounded by several inverted backwards crushing signs. It can take the particles, powdered or smashed, of an object and temporarily rearrange them to mimic the shape of the object the particles originally came from, allowing for easy identification of an unknown powder. Because the crush signs are inverted, the effect is the inverse of what it typically would be. The integration spell was first used by Tartar to identify powdered medical herbs to treat Coco's sickness with the correct herbs. Because the herbs were in unlabeled vials and Tartar has color blindness, he had problem picking the right one. Sand Cage. Sand Cage is an earth type spell that creates a cage of sand. It has a central earth sigil with a pair of column signs at the eastern and western points. The 2 components of each pair pointing towards one another, one inverted and one normal. Unknown half-circle signs are at the seal's northern and southern points. Inverted crush signs are located along the north-south axis, sandwiched into the spaces between the half-circle signs and the central earth sigil. Located at each of the intercardinal points are signs which appear to be a fusion of 1 column and 2 directional signs. It was used by Tetya to trap scaled wolf Oini so the other members of the atelier could attempt to turn him back to normal using the inverted scale wolf curse. Wind spells. Wind Wall. Wall of Wind is a wind type spell invented by Alara that creates a circular wall of air that is difficult to pass through. Wall of Wind contains a central air sigil with a cluster of inverted column signs in the front of the seal and several convergent signs at the back, along with a semi-circular sign with small detail on its edges located around the air sigil on the column half of the seal. This spell creates a circular wall of air which is difficult for objects or people to penetrate and can be used to contain people or animals. The spell was first seen used by Tetya to briefly hold the transformed Oini in place so she could restrain him with Sand Cage. This allowed Argot to carry out the next step in their plan to attempt and return Oini back to normal. Bubble Carriage spell. The bubble carriage has the main purpose of transporting witches from the surface to the Great Hall. The plate has a seal using an aeriform sigil to create a bubble of air contained within the rings. From the places where the rings cross on the left and right of the carriage, ropes connect to the reins of the animals, allowing the vehicle to be pulled. It also has an outer ring of column signs pointing inward and another ring of direction signs pointing outward. Wing Cloak. The Wing Cloak is a contraption and vehicle invented by Coco and Tartar as a way to help Kustas move around and access to more difficult terrain without the help of a sealed chair. This winged cloak was designed to serve as a mobility aid for those who are unable to walk. It helps the user to move around on the ground without the use of legs and fly when needed while still serving the purpose of a normal crutch. The primary spell is a type of flying seal similar in appearance and function to the Sylph Shoe seal, with secondary spells including an unknown one that repels both rain and dirt. Using the cloak itself and the seal built in, it allows the user to fly via a trigger mechanism on the crutches. Light spells. Light Tracer. Light Tracer is the spell of the crystal fragment bangles created by Riche as her contraption for Silver Eve. It has the same base as the Boulder Stretch Rope, but with a light sigil replacing the Earth one, and with an extra sign at the top with an unknown effect, but assumed to make the connection between the rings. If an item is broken apart and a light tracer seal is drawn on one of its fragments, the spell will send a string of light to all other fragments of that object, this effect being visible in the crystal fragment bangle. The spell or the rings it is attached to have not been used by anyone yet. Flowers of Light. Flowers of Light is a light type spell used to create glowing flowers. It has a decorative sigil for flowers surrounded by unknown signs and a pentagon formation that also separates the sigils from each other. Argot showed this spell to Coco while explaining decorative sigils. Coco mentioned its similarity to Kithri's own flower of water that he made when she first came to the atelier. Valan's Leech of Light. The Valan's Leech of Light is a light type spell that creates a light sculpture of a Valan's Leech. The spell is simple, only containing 5 column signs, the light sigil and the decorative sigil for the Valan's Leech. The column signs are inverted, which has the effect of dispersing the drawn spell. Argot drew this spell to prove her knowledge of the decorative sigil of a Valan's Leech when the witches were devising a plan to use the counterclock on it. When a witch asked her how she knew such an obscure sigil, she shyly explained that it was because she likes the type of magic. Time spells. Counterclock spell. The counterclock is a type of time magic that's separated from repetition spells because it doesn't use the repetition sigil. It doesn't have one clearly recognizable sigil on its own, but its design looks pretty similar to repetition and time stop magic. There also seem to be a few spells that bridge the gap between them, like the ones on Ininya's gloves. The spell itself is made up of straight lines that create a bunch of geometric shapes arranged in a 6-pointed star. Just like the name suggests, counterclock reverses time on whatever it's cast on. It's mainly used to undo wear damage or anything else that's happened to an object. The catch is that the effect only lasts for up to 1 day, so 24 hours. Once the time is up, the spell disappears and time catches back up with the target, returning it to the condition it would have been in if the spell had never been cast on. Of course, the spell can always be drawn again to restart the effect. We see this in action when Kithri uses the counterclock on an ink pot that Coco accidentally breaks. The spell not only repairs the pot, but also pulls all of the spilled ink back inside it. That gives them enough time to pour the ink into another container and save it before the spell eventually runs off. Spell of Reduction. The Spell of Reduction is a time spell that causes items to shrink down far below their typical size. The spell contains a sigil that appears to be a central repetition sign, surrounded inverted expansion signs with 4 diamond signs in the gaps between them. This spell works by shrinking anything within its area of effect, just like the floating expansion spell, which operates on the same concept as this one, with the expansion signs in their normal state rather than inverted, leading to growth instead of reduction in the regards to size. The spell is seen used in the period piece contraption, a contraption used to store clothes. It's composed of a tiny box with the sigil on its lid and bottom. Time Stop. Time Stop is another form of time magic that does exactly what it sounds. It freezes time for whatever it's cast on. The spell's design is made up of geometric symbols that look similar to counterclock, but with one key difference: it has a dot in the center. When activated, anything inside the spell's target is frozen in time, completely stopping its movement. Like most magic in the series, the spell only affects whatever is inside its ring unless it's modified with another sign such as region modifier. The center dot can also be replaced with a sigil to target a specific object instead, which is something we see with the Warmth Retention Seal. One of the clearest examples of time stop is after Dagda and Kustas are ambushed. It's implied that Ininya uses the time spell seals on the palms of her gloves to stop Dagda from bleeding out. Then once he is stabilized, she follows up with a counterclock to reverse his injuries. Valan's Leech Counterclock. The Valan's Leech Counterclock spell is a spell that applies the temporary time reversing effects of the counterclock just to Valan's Leeches. By using a Valan's Leech sigil, the spell is able to rewind Valans to their physical state 24 hours prior. The notable Valan's Leech the spell was used on to rewind did not recombine with the magically altered human it consumed. This is because the two were separated by physical barriers that prevented their recombination. This spell was utilized during the Silver Eve arc to neutralize the massive monstrous Valance Leech that had formed by consuming the blood of someone with a spell drawn on their person. The ink in their body reacted with their blood to supercharge the leech and turn it into a monster. By drawing the spell on numerous circular float forms strung together, it was possible to create one massive spell that was able to fully enclose the leech, which at this point had grown to be nearly the size of the complete city, and additionally vanished the wounds of anyone attacked. The Wash Barrel Seal. By putting dirty cloths in a barrel with a top that has the seal on the inner side, the cloths will be washed and feel like new again, according to Tetya. The washing barrel makes use of the repetition seal to clean the cloths placed within it. The repetition seals revert the objects back to their previous state. Vision spells. Light reducing spell. The light reducing spell is a vision spell designed to protect someone's eyesight by filtering out the brightest sources of light. Its design is pretty complex. At the center is a diamond-shaped sigil with several markings inside it, with circles overlapping each of the diamond's corners. That entire shape is surrounded by a larger diamond with convergence signs at each corner, while additionally branching lines connect everything together and extend toward the outer edge. When the spell is drawn onto a pair of glasses, it reduces harsh lighting, making it much easier for someone with deteriorating vision to see comfortably. So far, Kifri is the only character we've actually seen using this spell. To keep the magic from blocking his sight, Kifri uses blushing bright ink, which allows the spell to remain transparent on his lenses. Makeover Mask Spell. The Makeover Mask spell is a spell featured on the Makeover Mask that makes the user's face appear clean and like their best self. So basically it's magic makeup. The seal contains a central concealment sign, just like the Mirror Cloak, with both spells being used to conceal the wearer's original form in some way, but that is where the similarities end. It also contains two inward-facing region sigils and two unknown signs, one resembling an equal sign and another that looks like a spiral on the bottom of the seal respectively. It's not clear if the illusion effect will look the same for everyone or if it will change accordingly to the subject's own interpretation of beauty. The spell is only seen used on Olrugio's Makeover Mask, which he used during the Silver Eve festival to look his best. Looking Glass spell. A looking glass is a contraption that allows for users to view happenings from a distance. The looking glasses are round, flat, handheld discs that are about the size of a bigger plate. The user looks through the front while the back is covered with a seal. It allows for only visual communication, but it is also unclear if it's only one way or if it's similar to the window way, where you can have a matching seal or contraption that allows users on the other side to look back. Balderroot's Illusion Cloak. This spell was seen when Balderroot made Coco's witch cloths out of smoke. The spell contains column signs on the upper half next to a wind sigil at the top, also bend signs left and right next to the middle sigil. There is also a vision sign in the lower middle part and some other not easy to assign signs. Mixed spells. Beast Repellent. Beast Warding is a mixed type spell of light and unknown sigil used to repel animals. The spell contains a currently unidentified central sigil with light sigils to each side of it, and also a unidentified sign which can also be observed in the tracking spell is located above and below the central sigil. Column signs are located in the space between the light sigils and these unknown signs. As you can guess, its function is to repel animals or beasts. Witches put a copy of the spell within each Beastward spire, which are built around villages and along roadways. The contraption helps to repel the beasts, making the area safer for outsiders and witches. When the members of Kifri's atelier were traveling to the Silver Eve festival, he shows his apprentices a Beastward spire with an old beastwarding spell inside and advises Tetya to draw a fresh one. Cloak spell. The cloak spell is a mixed wind vision space type spell that allows the user to perform magic remotely through the cloak and control the cloak's movement from afar. The spell has a central body and a windowway ring that loops around the spell. Its main body contains a central concealment sign with 1 wind sigils on each of its 4 sides. Along the ring of the seal, 4 envelope and 4 puppet signs are placed. This spell was used by Sazaran on his cloak, and it functioned to allow him to control the cloak remotely while performing spells through it, hiding his main body completely elsewhere. The Cloak spell is a fusion of the Gathering Shadow spell, which drapes the object in shadow, the Flying Puppet of Diversion spell, which makes the object fly through the air, and the Windowway spell, which allows objects to pass through it from one location to another. Warmth Retention Seal. Warmth Retention Seal is a mixed spell that maintains low, steady heat. It has a fire sigil in the center and a yet unknown sign surrounding it that is identical to the Time Stop spell. When in use, the effect is that it will maintain a steady, low heat to whatever it is used on. The Warmth Retention Seal was first used in Witch Hat Atelier Kitchen when the Dragon Egg Crock was introduced. It was used exclusively with his magical crock pot contraption. This spell allows for food to continue cooking at a slow pace without the need for supervision. Niche spells. Fish Guidance. The Fish Guidance spell is used to guide magically created fish through the air toward a specific seal. The spell is built around a central guidance sigil. Surrounding it are several different signs including crosshair symbols, fish-shaped decorative sigils, flotation signs and column signs. At the bottom is a second, much larger fish decorative sigil. It's not completely clear what the difference is between the two fish symbols, but we do know that the decorative sigils can have simplified and alternate versions, like the old cat head sigil. So it's likely that's what's happening here as well. As the name suggests, the spell purpose is to attract magical flying fish to the seal, where they are automatically dispelled once they arrive. The spell is used during the Golden Eve procession by Juji to help Coco and Argot showcase Coco's portable waste purification pot. Floating Expansion. The Floating Expansion is a niche spell that makes the objects it's drawn on levitate and grow. The spell contains a central window sigil surrounded by enlarging signs. Float and column signs are located in the gaps between the enlarging signs. The spell causes whatever it's drawn on to grow to many times its original size, as well as causing it to levitate. The spell was used by Kifri, who had it drawn inside a tiny magic book he owned. He used the spell to enlarge the book, and with Coco's help they used the book as a vehicle to evade the Guardian of the Tower at the Tower of Tomes. Inverted Scale Wolf Curse. The Inverted Scale Wolf Curse is a niche type spell designed to counteract the mental effects of the Scale Wolf Curse. The spell is believed to use the same signs as the original Scale Wolf Curse, but with the symbols inverted. In Magic, inverting a sign can reverse the spell effect, allowing one spell to cancel out another. This idea is what the Inverted Scale Wolf Curse was based on. However, the spell wasn't able to completely undo the Scale Wolf Curse, but while it failed to transform Oini back to its original form, it was still able to repair the damage done to their minds and restore their sense of self. The idea for this spell came from the discussion between Argot, Coco and Tetya while they were inside the Serpent Bear Cave. Coco suggested that by reversing the seal placed on Oini, they might be able to undo the spell that turned him into a scaled wolf. After restraining him, Argot drew the inverted spell over the original seal and activated it, although it sadly didn't return him to his original form but healed his mind. Lockwax. The Lockwax is a niche spell that is used to bind scrolls. It contains an unknown sigil in an inner circle with 3 lines dividing the outer circle into equal sections. Each section is identical with an arrow-like sign with a triangle on the end pointing towards the center of each section. To the right of each arrow are 2 short lines with one bending at the right angle over the other. From Kifri's reaction, it can be assumed that Lockwax is not commonly used or is only used for protecting powerful or important scrolls. But it's not completely clear how exactly the Lockwax works and what level of protection it actually offers. Pouch of Calling. Pouch of Calling, also referred to as an echo pouch, is a contraption that echoes recorded speech in order to lure people or creatures or to just deliver a message. The Pouch of Calling is comprised of a pouch or a piece of cloth with 2 seals drawn on it, a seal of pursuit on the outside and a seal of recorded sound on the inside. Words or phrases are then spoken into the fabric and the pouch will echo them back. The seal of pursuit allows the pouch to be somewhat autonomous, being able to move in a hopping motion in order to go to the receiver of the message and then lure them elsewhere. Pouch of Calling was invented by Argot as her contribution to the sincerity of the shield make-up test. It was used to get Balderroot's attention and then lure him to the final surprise, which was then a combination of multiple spells invented by the apprentices. During the Valan's Leech attack at Silver Eve, numerous pouches of calling were made with snugstones inside to make them lifelike enough to lure the leech away from the town. Seal Chair Glyph. The The seal chair is a niche type spell that allows the seal chair to move, a leg contraption that functions like a wheelchair and is used by the disabled. The spell is incredibly complex and the signs it is composed of are too small to make out. It seems to be made of a main spell with 12 satellite seals surrounding it, 4 of them being large and the other 8 being small. Out of the signs that can be made out, one looks similar to the dancing puppet keystone, seen in the flying puppet of diversion spell. The spell is present on the seal chairs used by Belderud and Kustas, who use them to assist in their mobility due to 2 of them being unable to walk. Tracking spell. The tracking spell is a particular spell normally used by the pointed head witches to mark and track magical items. Very little is known about the signs and keystones that make the tracking spell up. The pointed head witches use this tracking spell on items that are given or sold to outsiders, so the Knight Morales can locate those items that are sold in the black market, since most magical items are very expensive. Lulusi explains this when she visits Kustas at Karn Medical Facility and he is no longer there. Smoke Sculpting Seal. The Smoke Sculpting Seal is a niche spell that creates a smoke or possibly steam sculpture of the ingredients added to tea. It has an unknown sign or sigil that looks like a spiral with an arrow through it vertically in the center. It is surrounded by inverted crush signs and column signs, as well as signs similar to the raindrop from the water sigil. In the outer portion of the spell there are several signs which look like asterisks mixed with column signs. Similar to integration, the spell will reform the original shape of the ingredients put into it. However, rather than doing this with the ingredients themselves, the smoke sculpture recreates the shape of nearby ingredients using smoke instead. Used on tea saucers owned by Kifri, the spell was first demonstrated on Coco's Mark tea and then later used with the other apprentices for a game of hush tea. Garment Glimpse Glasses. The garment glimpse glasses are a contraption used to see under a person's clothes. Since this causes indirect harm to people, it is illegal despite not being forbidden magic. A pair of glasses with a large nose covering piece. Owlcat projection. Owlcats in general have had various infrequent representation within the manga. They also appear to be a favorite animal of Argot, as she is drawn with a stuffed owlcat plush as a younger child and creates a floating light spell in the shape of an owlcat's head. The spell has the owlcat head sigil in the middle. It implies that decorative signs can be split into smaller portions, which will form the individual body parts corresponding to that section of the decorative sigil. Smoke Cloud. The Smoke Cloud is another niche type spell. In the past, Child Ulrugio used the smoke spell to confuse lion goats that chased him and Kifri. It has a smoke sigil in the middle and a circle of outward facing column signs. Advanced Beast Warding. Advanced Beast Warding was first seen when Alyra talked to Oini in his beast form to rely on beast warding to keep creatures away instead of sleeping in his scale wolf form, because he is a witch. The seal contains column signs and some other unknown signs and sigil, so it's not completely clear. Amplification Scroll. The Amplification Scroll helped to enhance the effect of Kifri's magic in the fight against Egendal. The signs alternate between column and direction signs, but also a mix of signs that are a bit unclear. Pouch Guidance. The moving pouches with snugstones inside were used to lead the giant leech away from the town and the hill. It has a guidance sigil that attracts objects to its location that match parameters set by the other signs and sigils in the spell. It also contains 2 pouch of calling seals, 2 float signs and 2 column signs. Belderud's Smoke Sculpture. The spell is of an unknown type that creates a dragon out of smoke. The spell is very complex, utilizing several different signs and sigils in order to form a fake dragon out of smoke, which is capable of flying through the air and roaring. The spell was used by Belderud during his conversation with Coco in his room. During their conversation he drew the spell on a flat circular floating platform. Gloves of Curious Strength. The Gloves of Curious Strength are a contraption used to help lift heavy objects. It has a seal drawn on the fronts of both of them. They were first shown being used by Tetya to help carry a heavy box. Unfortunately, it's hard to make out the exact signs and sigils. The Sand Tent Staff Seal. This seal is one of Tetya's creations. The sand tent staff is a magical rod made by Tetya that conveniently creates a tent wherever you are by manipulating terrain. By hooking the stuff into the ground and lifting it, a layer of the soil will arise and you can use it as a tent while the stuff serves as a support. Sadly, it is a bit hard to make out the seal. Forbidden Spells. Anti-Scale Wolf Curse. The Anti-Scalewolf Curse is a forbidden spell that completely nullifies the effects of the Scalewolf Curse. Unlike the inverted Scalewolf Curse we heard before, this isn't just a reversed version of the original spell, it's a completely separate spell with a much stronger effect. Anti-Scalewolf Curse is capable of fully returning the afflicted person back to their original human form. Iguin explains to Coco that the only way to reverse the Scalewolf Curse completely is through forbidden magic. He then attempts to manipulate the apprentices and especially Coco into drawing the spell themselves. However, before they can be forced into doing something like that, Coco uses a Grasping Wind spell to steal the collar from Iguin, the collar he used to demonstrate the Anti-Scalewolf Curse to the others. Slime Rendering Seal. Engendal uses the seal on the body of a prisoner to transform a curtain leech into a giant threat. It's concretely revealed here that the combination of ink and human blood creates a enormous unexpected magic. The exact signs and sigils are not completely clear, but there are many glaive signs pointing towards the extremities and also on the chest. Truth Spell. Shocked to learn the truth about the Silverwood tree, the spell was used by Tata to force Coco to tell the truth about what she is hiding from him, shortly after Kustas transformed into a Silverwood tree at the Silver Eve. It contains multiple glaive signs and also some signs that look like a part of the puppet sign. Ancient Spells. Arcane Lens of Amplification. The Arcane Lens of Amplification is a magic amplifier from before the days of the Pact. The lens is an extremely large circular contraption made of an unknown material. It is used to amplify the effects of a seal, accomplished by placing the spell contraption in question in the middle of the lens. The contraption is very old magic, having been used in the times of the war. It was last used by the ancients of Romanon to melt themselves with a snugstone provided by Coco to end their sufferings. Now, we made it through. These are all of the current spells in Witch Hat Atelier. Theoretically, there are still some different standard seals in the anime and manga we see very briefly, but I didn't include them here because they had no name and also no effect was ever shown. I'm sure that there will be many new ones in the future, and when there are enough new spells, I will likely make a part 2 in the distant future. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to add something more or I still forgot something, feel free to write a comment. And have a great day and goodbye.